All right, this book that you wrote, Guts and Genius, the story of three unlikely coaches who came to dominate the NFL in the 80s.
Did you get your copy?
I did.
I signed it.
Yes, I did. And I
described it to you?
Yes.
Sure.
I think I first met Bob. These guys were there every day with the Giants, and I would come in usually one day a week. Parcells was the coach. So I'd go there on the Sunday home games, and then I'd come in like on Monday or Tuesday. And Parcells, you'd sit around this table, and you just hope that he didn't notice you.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't notice me for a variety of reasons. Did you get yelled at by Parcells?
Sure, all the time.
Yeah.
I once got we can't swear, so I wrote a story about Lawrence Taylor. This was back in '87. He was drinking in training camp. So at that time, Dwight Gooden had the same problem, and he went back to cocaine. So I had talked to some experts to say that LT was running the risk of kind of going down that road again, going back to cocaine. So I had to research the story. I talked to LT. I had to ask him, hey, Lawrence, I'm writing a story about you. I told him what I was going to write. I don't give a what you write. All right. So then I go to Parcells. LT's lawyer is going to come after you. Hey, don't write it. Don't write it. Of course I had to write it. Next day, show up at the press conference, very small room at Pace University. And I asked him some question maybe about the offensive line or something. You just got to show up. When you write something like that, you got to show up. Yeah. Bill, what do you think about the left tackle position? Looks at me. He goes, that was a horse blank story, and you're horse blank for writing it. Like, all right. You got to sit there, take it.
Did you quote him?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But you would have to now because it would be all over Twitter and on video. But he wouldn't have said it now because it was just a different time. But we got to know each other quite well. I presented him for the Hall of Fame in the meeting to give his qualifications. So I'll call Bill Parcells all the time right now. It's probably the best person that I've ever covered because of just how interesting he was and is.
And you're talking about Hall of Fame coaches, but different motivational skills with all three.
Yeah. Yep.
Very unique.
Absolutely.
We know Parcells. You could see Parcells, very snide, sneaky, jabbing, tried to intimidate the media. What were Bill Walsh and Joe Gibbs like?
Well, Gibbs was much more straightforward than any of them. He was a grinder. He didn't have a lot of pizzazz as a person, but he got to players and he was brutally honest with them. Walsh was a game player. I mean, he was a needler. He would yell at players through their coaches. He would yell at the assistant coaches about if a player did something wrong, and the player would hear it and say, "Wow, I don't like that." Now the assistant coach is covering for him, but it was his way of kind of motivating differently, and he was a real game player, and he and Parcells, those rivalries, Dan, were phenomenal.
Yeah, I
don't think that someone in 2050 looking back at today's NFL would say, "Here's a book about three great coaching, coaches and the rivalries," because you just don't have those rivalries, but they were long-standing. And Walsh was, he was just a game player, and he was.
Could you imagine Walsh now, and who would be more successful in today's NFL with those three quarterbacks?
I think it would be Gibbs. I think Gibbs was. You can make the argument that he was the greatest tactician in NFL history. Sounds kind of crazy.
He was an offensive genius without somebody labeling him an offensive genius.
He was very, he was not boastful, but he won 3 Super Bowls with 3 quarterbacks, none of whom was close to the Hall of Fame. Name me another coach who did that. Parcells is close. He won with 2 who aren't going to go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. But
Walsh had Montana. Belichick has Brady. Tom Landry had Staubach.
Walsh had Young.
In the latter part, right? And he won. Gibbs was just brilliant, and he took what he had, and then he won with that. So what do you have in today's NFL? Sometimes you don't have the dominant players. You win with what you have. You kind of put the pieces in place.
Well, those coaches also like to say, it's not the people. I mean, it's not the player. I can make anybody win. My system makes people win.
Well, Gibbs did make people win, but he wouldn't say he made people win. Now, Walsh would say he made people win. That was him.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.